name is Emma, and what happened at Morton's dairy farm changed everything I thought I knew about my quiet village. I needed money for college, so I took a job doing night shifts at Morton's farm outside our village in Derbyshire. The pay was good. Too good, really. But Mr. Morton said he needed someone reliable to watch the livestock and check the automated milking systems. Morton was a respected man in our community. Church council member, donated to local charities, had owned the farm for 30 years. His son James helped run things during the day. The work seemed easy enough. Walk around the barns every few hours, check the computer systems, make sure nothing was wrong. The farm was modern, everything automated. I mostly just had to be there in case of emergencies. But after a few weeks, I started noticing cars coming and going in the middle of the night. Expensive cars that didn't belong to farming people. They'd park behind the main barn, stay for an hour, then leave. When I asked Mr. Morton about it, he said they were veterinary consultants checking on sick animals. That didn't make sense. The animals all looked healthy to me. One night around 2 a.m. I heard voices coming from the old grain storage building. It was supposed to be empty. Morton had built new storage facilities the year before. I walked over to investigate and saw light coming from under the door. Through a crack in the wood, I could see inside. There were about 15 men in expensive suits sitting on chairs arranged in a circle. In the center was a table with white powder and scales. Money was stacked everywhere. Mr. Morton was there along with James, but so were people I recognized from the village. The bank manager, 2 police officers, even our local MP who lived in the big house on the hill. They were packaging drugs. Cocaine, from what I could tell. Using the farm as a distribution center. I backed away carefully but stepped on a loose board. It creaked loudly. The voices inside stopped talking. I ran back to the main barn and pretended to check on the cows. A few minutes later, James appeared. "Everything all right out here?" he asked, but his eyes were hard, suspicious. "Just doing my rounds," I said, trying to sound normal. The next day, I went to the police station in the next town over. I couldn't trust our local officers. I'd seen 2 of them at that meeting. I told a detective what I'd witnessed, gave him names and details. He took it seriously. Said they'd been investigating drug trafficking in the area but couldn't figure out how it was organized. A legitimate farm operation was the perfect cover. They set up surveillance on the property, but it took weeks to gather enough evidence. Meanwhile, I had to keep working my shifts, pretending I hadn't seen anything. Every night I was terrified someone would realize I knew. Then one evening, Morton pulled me aside. "Emma, I hear you've been asking questions around the village," he said quietly. "About the farm, about visitors we have." My blood went cold. Someone had told him I was talking. "I'm just doing my job," I said. "I know you are, but some jobs require more discretion than others. You understand?" He was threatening me. This man I'd known since childhood, who taught me to drive a tractor when I was 15. That night I called the detective and told him I couldn't wait any longer. They had to move now. The raid happened 3 days later. Police surrounded the farm at 1 a.m. when the next meeting was scheduled. They caught the entire operation. Morton, James, the bank manager, both police officers, and 12 others, including the MP. They found £2 million worth of cocaine, detailed financial records, and evidence the operation had been running for 5 years. The farm's legitimate business was just cover for moving drugs across the country. Morton had been using his reputation in the community to stay above suspicion. No one questioned why successful businessmen visited his farm at night. They assumed it was normal agricultural business. The whole thing made national news. Our quiet village was suddenly famous for all the wrong reasons. 14 people were convicted, including the 2 corrupt police officers. Morton got 12 years. James got 8. I finished college with the reward money the police gave me for helping break the case. But I moved away from the village afterward. Too many people there blame me for destroying families, for bringing shame on the community. The farm was sold to new owners who actually use it for farming. But I learned something important from all this. Criminals aren't always strangers in dark alleys. Sometimes they're the people everyone trusts, hiding in plain sight in places you'd never think to look. When something feels wrong, it usually is, even if the person involved seems respectable, even if everyone else thinks they're wonderful. My name is Tom, and I need to tell someone what really happened at Riverside Farm before the police closed the case. I was hired as a farmhand last October. The owner, David Hartwell, seemed normal when we met. Middle-aged guy, friendly enough. He offered good money and a place to stay in his old farmhouse. I needed work badly after losing my job in Manchester, so I said yes. The farm was isolated, 20 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by thick woods. David lived alone in the main house while I got a small room upstairs. He said his wife had died years ago and his grown kids never visited anymore. For the first month, everything was fine. I fed the cattle, fixed fences, helped with harvests. David was quiet but treated me well. Paid on time, cooked decent meals. I thought I'd found the perfect job. Then I started noticing the smell. It came from the old barn at the back of the property. David always kept it locked and said it was just storage. But the smell got worse every day. Sweet and rotten like meat left out in the sun. When I asked about it, David's whole mood changed. "Stay away from that barn," he said. His voice was different, cold. "That's not your concern." A few days later, I was fixing a water pipe near the barn when I heard something moving inside. Not rats or birds, something bigger. And then I heard what sounded like crying. Very quiet, but definitely human. I tried the door, but it was locked with 3 different padlocks. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that sound. About David's reaction when I asked questions. The next morning, David was gone. Left a note saying he had business in town and would be back in 2 days. This was my chance. I found a crowbar in the tool shed and broke the locks. The smell hit me like a wall when I opened the door. Inside was dark, but I could see a trapdoor in the floor. That's where the smell was coming from. I lifted the trapdoor and nearly threw up. Below was a small concrete room, maybe 8 feet square, and inside was a girl, maybe 16 or 17, chained to the wall. She was alive but barely conscious, thin, dirty, terrified. "Please," she whispered when she saw me, "please help me." I got her out of there immediately, called the ambulance and police while she drank water and ate some bread. Her name was Sarah Mills. She'd been missing for 8 months. Her family lived in Leeds and thought she was dead. She told me David had taken 3 other girls over the years, kept them in that room for months before killing them. She only survived because she was small and could make herself useful cleaning his house during the day. He was planning to kill her soon and bring someone new. When the police searched the property, they found the remains of 4 other girls buried in the woods behind the barn. All young, all reported missing from different towns over the past 5 years. David came back that evening and found police cars everywhere. He tried to run but crashed his truck into a tree 2 miles down the road. Broke his neck and died instantly. Sarah is alive and back with her family now. The other families finally got answers about what happened to their daughters. The case made national news for weeks. I still have nightmares about that smell, about thinking how many times I walked past that barn without knowing someone was trapped inside calling for help. If I hadn't heard her crying that day, Sarah would be dead too. The farm is empty now, for sale, but nobody wants it. I moved back to the city and got a job in a warehouse. I'll never work on an isolated farm again. Sometimes people ask me how I knew something was wrong. The truth is, I almost didn't check. I almost minded my own business like David wanted. That's what scares me most. How close evil can be to normal life, and how easy it is to miss if you're not paying attention. My name is Mark, and I survived something at Blackwood Hunting Lodge that still gives me nightmares. I took a groundskeeper job at a private hunting lodge in the Scottish Highlands. The owner, Richard Ashford, was a wealthy businessman from London who used the place for weekend hunting trips with his friends. The lodge was huge and isolated, surrounded by dense forest. Richard seemed normal enough when he hired me. Polite, well-dressed, talked about traditional hunting. My job was simple: maintain the grounds and help prepare for guests. For the first month, everything seemed fine. Richard would come up with groups of older, wealthy men for weekend hunts. They'd go out with rifles and come back with deer or rabbits. Normal stuff. But then I noticed something odd. They'd leave with huge amounts of equipment for day hunts, but always came back empty-handed. No game, no trophies. Yet they were always excited, laughing and congratulating each other. One day, while cleaning Richard's office, I accidentally knocked over a folder, photographs scattered everywhere. At first, I thought they were normal hunting photos, men posing with their kills. But the kills weren't animals, they were people. Young hikers and campers lying dead while Richard and his friends posed with rifles, grinning like they'd just won a prize. Dozens of photos going back years. I heard footsteps and quickly put the photos back. Richard walked in, watching me carefully. "Everything all right, Mark?" he asked. That night, I saw trucks leaving the lodge toward the restricted forest area. I tried calling police, but the signal was weak. I managed to report what I'd found before the line died. The next morning, Richard came to my cabin with 2 armed friends. "We need to talk," he said. They took me deep into the forest where they had a camp set up. 3 young backpackers were tied to trees, 2 men and a woman terrified and gagged. "Hunting animals gets boring," Richard explained calmly. "No real challenge, but people run, hide, fight back. It's the ultimate sport." They'd been doing this for 15 years, capturing hikers in remote areas, then hunting them through the forest. Police thought these people just got lost in the wilderness. They untied one of the captives and gave him a 10-minute head start. Then they grabbed their rifles and followed. 3 hours later, they came back dragging his body. "Your turn tomorrow," Richard told me. But that night, police helicopters appeared overhead. My phone call had gotten through. Armed officers surrounded the camp just as they were preparing the next hunt. All 6 men were arrested. Richard tried claiming self-defense, but the photos proved everything. Police found evidence of 20 murders over 15 years. The whole group got life sentences. The 2 surviving captives recovered physically, though the trauma stays with them. I testified at trial and described everything I witnessed. The hunting lodge was demolished. The land is protected forest now. I work in a town library these days, somewhere busy where I can see people coming and going. I learned that evil can hide behind expensive clothes and polite conversation. And I'll never ignore my instincts again, no matter how crazy they seem.